afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the annual meeting of the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, or as we call it, the Council. I'm Deborah Nelson. I'm the Director of the Office of Policy, Planning, and Performance at New York State Department of Transportation, and I also serve as the Secretary of this Council. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the NYMTC website within 2 weeks of this meeting. So at this time, I'm going to begin the roll call. When I announce your agency, I am asking each principal or representative to state your name and the agency, and if applicable, who you are representing. All right, I'm going to begin with the voting members of the council. New York State Department of Transportation.
Present.
New York, if you couldn't.
Marie-Therese Dominguez, Commissioner of the New York State Department of Transportation.
Thank you. New York City Department of Transportation.
Mike Flynn, Commissioner, New York City Department of Transportation.
New York City Department of City Planning.
Laura Smith, Deputy Executive Director for Strategic Planning at the Department of City Planning, representing Director Daniel Gradnick.
Nassau County.
Robert DiCarlo, Deputy County Executive, representing Nassau County, and County Executive Bruce Blake.
Suffolk County.
Elisa Pica, Suffolk County Chief Transportation Officer, representing County Executive Ed Romaine.
Thank you. Rockland County.
Stephen Powers, Director of Public Policy and Intergovernmental Relations, representing County Executive Edwin J. Day.
Putnam County.
Kevin Byrne, Putnam County Executive for Putnam County.
Westchester County.
Ken Jenkins, Westchester County Executive.
Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Alyssa Cobb-Conan, Deputy Chief Development Officer Planning, representing Chair Jana Lieber.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to the advisory members of the council. Federal Transit Administration. Federal Highway Administration.
Gadamani, representing New York Division Administrator Rick Markey.
Thank you. New Jersey Transit.
Jeremy Colangelo, Chief Planner, representing
North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
David Barron, Executive Director, representing NJTPA.
United States Environmental Protection Agency.
Lily Black from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in Region 2, representing our Regional Administrator, Michael Martucci.
The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Good afternoon, Jay Sheffield, Manager of Regional Transportation Policy, representing Executive Director Catherine Garcia.
And the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Hi, Sanjay Seth, Deputy Commissioner for Climate, Air, and Energy, representing Commissioner Amanda Lefton.
Great, thank you. By my count, and according to the operating procedures, we have a quorum of today's meeting. I would like to turn the meeting over now to the Council Co-Chairs, New York State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez, and Mike Flynn, the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Transportation.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. For everyone here, thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. Got here as quickly as I could. You know, it's a big day for transportation in New York City. Literally, the snow is melting, people are moving, and it's a hustle and bustle. And I have to say, I'll just give you a quick anecdote. As I was walking into the facility this morning, it's always fabulous to be in a setting like NYU, so thank you very much, Polly Trottenberg. I heard one gentleman turn around to his colleague this morning and just say, look, my mother always told me, never ask a woman her age. It is not good manners. And I was like, go mom. Anyway, on a much more serious note, today, we really are gathered for our NYMTC meeting, and I want to wish a very warm welcome, first of all, to our many partners who are here today. Thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join NYMTC. I also want to say a warm welcome to our newly appointed New York City Transportation Commissioner, Mike Flynn. Thank you very much. I know you're no stranger whatsoever to transportation, but you have a legacy in New York City, some of whom are here in the audience, and we greatly appreciate the collaboration across the board, and so thank you very, very much. We are going to be hearing from our keynote speaker, Polly Trottenberg. Polly, congratulations on the leadership work that you did not only in Washington, D.C. under the last administration and leading us forward on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Truly was revolutionary. I think precedent-setting in so many different ways, and here's hoping as we reauthorize the surface transportation bill, we can do something as bold and as brilliant as the last one. So thank you very much. But we are thrilled to have you back in New York, so thank you for your leadership, your continued leadership. I also want to say a big thank you to our executive director for NYMTC, Adam Lubin. Adam has been an incredibly steady, bright, guiding hand here at NYMTC for a number of years, and we greatly appreciate the entire team at NYMTC, but very much appreciate Adam's leadership across the board. The theme for this meeting is transportation innovation, and there are very few places that have exemplified, I think, this theme outside of New York State, New York City. We truly do lead the nation in so many different ways. If you go back to the early 19th century, the Erie Canal was built. It connected the Great Lakes and the Atlantic Ocean, and it cemented New York City's status as a global port, and certainly the Empire State status as a gateway to the West. Railroads helped to further spur that growth in the population across the United States, but certainly a growth in the industry across the state of New York. As did the interstate highway system when it was constructed back in its day, which built modern highways and changed the way the nation traveled. But in New York City, I have to say one of the best innovations that we came up with was the subway system. It truly revolutionized urban life by enabling rapid movement for millions of people, forever transforming the city planning and ability, and truly setting goals and standards for rapid transit around the globe. And if you just look at the last few days, the fact that the MTA and our transit system literally kept New York City and the entire region moving with 2 feet of snow on the ground. Long Island had 3 feet. You know, it's just remarkable, the resiliency that's built into the system. We have to continue to innovate if we're going to compete on a global scale by building smart infrastructure that truly connects communities while enhancing safety and affordability for all of New York. Everyone here plays a role in transportation innovation, and I want to thank you first and foremost for your leadership at the federal level, at the state level, at the county level, at the local level. It takes everyone. NYMTC is a special kind of partnership that year after year we gather, we plan, we look forward, and we look to innovate, and this partnership enables us all to work together for the betterment of our entire downstate metropolitan region. Because at the end of the day, transportation and infrastructure are really not partisan issues. They are fundamentally issues of the health of our communities and how we actually live, grow, and advance. Transportation, as I like to say, is the nervous system. It's the backbone of the entire state and of our nation. The planning and coordination we do here amongst all of our partners at NYMTC allows the entire region to move. We move people, however and wherever they want to go, and where they need to go, and however they choose to get there. Whether they're walking, they're biking, they're taking the subway, bus, whatever it is, we move people, we move goods, we move emergency services, we have snowplow operators that make sure that we can do that regardless of the condition. Whatever it is, we put the system in place and make it all happen. So connecting New Yorkers to their communities is the most fundamental thing that we do, and we plan for that. We plan, we invest in, and we build the foundation of our region's future. I've gotten to know many of you over the years, and I'm very thankful for your continued collaboration and friendship, which will be necessary as we face what is sure to be a federal transportation reauthorization process that is getting very real very fast these days. Reauthorization at the federal surface transportation bill is the focus area for all of our transportation partners in New York and across the country. Our transportation partners across the U.S. know how important this issue is to the future of where we live and where they live, and how we're all going to make it forward. Federal resources are limited, yet the needs of our system and thus the needs of those dollars get greater and greater every year. And I know that this group will work together to leverage as many federal dollars as we can possibly secure for our region. People hear the phrase billions of dollars when they think of transportation, and they think that literally we're flowing in it and it just is endless, and that is not the case. I deal with it all the time, and my counterparts, I know all of you deal with it. There are so many needs in our system in every mode of transportation that money is literally spoken for as soon as it is appropriated and allocated. And it's done so wisely because we do good planning. We have coordination and collaboration, and that's what NYMTC is all about. That's what NYMTC excels at. Working together, we ensure a shared regional vision by focusing on collective planning activities, which in turn help form the Unified Planning Work Program that NYMTC issues. It's the Long-Range Regional Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program that is so critical, that underlies everything that we do. But NYMTC is much more than just a planning organization. NYMTC also takes a hard look at transportation dilemmas that are tough to solve, bringing us together as we try to solve them all together. There would not be a transformational West Side Highway without the groundwork that was first laid by NYMTC. And all of us at State DOT count on NYMTC as the metropolitan planning organization for the 10-county metro area that we all live in. And we also count on NYMTC as our full partner in our transportation master plan and our active transportation plan, which the New York State DOT is currently developing. This transportation master plan is a long-range statewide transportation vision that will guide policies and priorities for New York State's transportation system, looking all the way out to 2050. And while our active transportation plan is looking at an array of options for improving walking, bicycling, rolling, basically any form of mobility and active transportation, that's what we're all about, and we're doing it throughout New York State. Working with our partners at NYMTC and the MPOs across New York State, DOT is expanding opportunities for all modes of transportation, much like we did in the South Bronx with our recently completed $1.7 billion Hunts Point Access Project, which was just completed on time and under budget. This project is now connecting neighborhoods once divided by old highway infrastructure, removing 13,000 trucks daily from local roads, and by providing direct access for trucks to the Hunts Point market, the busiest on the East Coast. We created, along with New York City, parks, recreational opportunities, access to green space for residents of the South Bronx. Truly is one of those transformational projects that we all worked on. And by continuing to work with NYMTC as we advance all of these efforts, we know that we're going to get to a better place as a whole. Whatever we're doing in the greater tri-state metropolitan area, NYMTC is there. This is a great partnership, one that I'm extremely proud to be a part of. And as we look to innovate and advance transportation in New York State, I know that working with all of our partners, we will take New York to the next level of safety, of accessibility, of equity, and connectivity. I thank you all very much for being here today and for your continued commitment to advancing transportation across our entire region. We all need to fight together to win what is the future of transportation. So thank you all very much. With that, let me turn it over to my co-chair, Commissioner Flynn.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Dominguez. I couldn't agree more with everything you said, and also great to see everybody here today. I really appreciate our partnership in my first, not quite 2 months, but and your leadership. And likewise, thank you to Adam for your leadership here at NYMTC. A few other acknowledgements. I want to shout out some of our team from New York City DOT here today, Executive Deputy Commissioner Paul Ochoa, Assistant Regional Planner Jorlyn Garcia, and Regional Planning Coordinator Jeffrey Otto in our Transportation Planning and Management Group. Along with Renee Peters-Smith and Adeleke Sedi Bamuse in Grants Management, they've collectively been our agency's voice here at NYMTC. And of course, I can't wait to hear our keynote, Dean Polly Trottenberg's address today. Dean Trottenberg is among my most esteemed predecessors as New York City DOT Commissioner. And just last evening, I was singing her praises at an Institute of Transportation Engineers meeting about one of her most enduring projects, the historic overhaul of Queens Boulevard. I'm sure most of you know this, but among her accomplishments, Polly led a dramatic redesign of that street, once the Boulevard of Death. Along with lower speed limits and the addition of speed cameras, traffic fatalities have declined on that street by 95% compared to where they were 30 years ago, 95%. As the commissioner who brought Vision Zero to life here in New York City, Polly, your legacy of saved lives is extraordinary. I also really want to acknowledge my immediate predecessor, both as commissioner and as NYMTC co-chair, Commissioner Idanis Rodriguez, who brought such passion and energy to the work at the agency and put equity at the core of all we do. We're also today electing my successor as co-chair, County Executive Kevin Byrne, and I'm looking forward to working with you, Executive Byrne. So obviously my remaining tenure as co-chair will be very short, basically the length of this meeting. So I was thinking that this was my opportunity to give my long dreamed of lecture on the pitfalls of Euclidean zoning. But I'll hold off on that. Seriously, I do look forward to returning as a NYMTC member, committed to the rewarding work of serving the transportation needs of the entire region. And as a planner, I really do place a high value on the importance of regional planning, especially in a region as complex as this. Deeply committed to that work. And local and regional planning are really inextricably linked. Regional transportation must support the local and vice versa. We know the impact transportation decisions made by people in this room have on the lives of everyday people, whether it's making decisions that involve saving lives on Queens Boulevard, or like Mayor Mamdani's commitment to fast and free buses, creating access to opportunity and giving people back time and money, especially to working folks and those struggling the most in our city. So much important work was spawned and aided by the connections made here at NYMTC. Congestion pricing's, of course, been the biggest success story of our entire region, in my opinion, gaining international attention. We know that in 2025, congestion pricing's first year, the sky did not fall, but one of the most joyous developments was that traffic and travel times did not increase anywhere across the region, including in places where it was feared most, in environmental justice communities along the Cross Bronx Expressway. But that doesn't mean we won't continue the important work of mitigating the impacts of the Cross Bronx. And along with Commissioner Dominguez, we're continuing the work under the Mamdani administration to find the ways that we can, neighborhood by neighborhood, minimize the impact on the surrounding communities. Also in the Bronx in the last year, New York City DOT worked with NYMTC on a project I know Commissioner Rodriguez was incredibly passionate about, breaking ground on a critical new segment of Greenway for pedestrians and cyclists near Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, as we build a new Bronx-Harlem River Greenway all the way south to Randall's Island. I'm proud that that work, which will be a true multi-agency regional project, will also continue. And while we're at it, you've probably heard about some of the work that our agency has recently announced, also up in the Bronx, as we're going to put our transit development team's long overdue plan for Fordham Road, the busiest bus route in the borough, into action. With the great team of planners and engineers and other pros at New York City DOT, we're just getting started. Finally, I want to thank Director Lubin and NYMTC for providing New York City DOT the opportunity to work with talented graduate students on innovative transportation projects at New York City DOT. We have the pleasure of hosting 5 fellows as part of the September 11th Memorial Fellows Program at our agency right now, doing incredibly important work. If any of those fellows are here today, can you give a wave? Excellent, thank you. Look forward to meeting. So many thanks to NYMTC, and I look forward to working with all of you in this new role. And I'll pass things back to Commissioner Dominguez.
All right. Well, I think we have a greeting, a short video, welcome message from Senator Kristen Gillibrand. So if we could play that.
Hello, I'm Kristen Gillibrand, and welcome to the annual meeting of the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council. I'd like to thank you all for your commitment to ensuring the safety, reliability, and resilience of our transportation systems. As ranking member of the Senate Transportation Appropriations Subcommittee, I'm proud to have delivered billions of dollars in federal funding for transportation and infrastructure in the fiscal year 2026 THUD bill. From a new transit security program to transit capital grants to competitive grant programs that will restore connectivity with our cities, and of course, critical formula funding for the roads, buses, subways, ferries, trains, and airports. I send my best wishes for a productive event, and I look forward to working with all of you to strengthen our infrastructure, improve our accessibility, and foster safe and vibrant communities. Thank you.
I really appreciate, want to extend our thanks to Senator Gillibrand and her team. Greatly appreciate the welcome message. And let me turn it back to Commissioner Flynn.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll now ask NYMTC's Executive Director, Adam Lubin, to give his report.
Thank you, Commissioner Flynn. I wanted to make sure I tested out the microphone for Polly before she comes on up here, so I'm getting up, and I also am not great at speaking while I'm sitting down, so I wanted to get up here. So thank you to everyone who has joined us here today. Our theme this year is tied into the semi-quincentennial of our country as we celebrate the 250th birthday of this land that is your land and my land. Our thoughts quite naturally turn to innovation. I mean, the whole idea of our country is an innovation, right? New ideas, questioning what came before, forming a more perfect union. It's all there at the start, written right into the instruction manual. I got this actually at $5 below. I mean, $5 for the Constitution, Declaration, it's awesome. Anyway, so as Americans, we are expected to put the work in to make our country better than it was for ourselves and our posterity, some of whom are in the room with us today. The particular wording of our theme, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Transportation Innovation, is a pretty direct reference to the Declaration of Independence and the self-evident truths of which Thomas Jefferson spoke. But as I reflected on what I would share with you this afternoon, I was drawn to something in the Constitution, actually. Article 1, Section 8 lays out the power of Congress to, quote, promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Our founders created a makerspace of ideas 250 years ago that has been one of the primary reasons for the prosperity of our nation and the blessings we share. And New Yorkers have not stopped innovating since. Nowhere is that more apparent than in our realm, the field of transportation. As you can see in our annual report, I hope everybody has a copy of our wonderful annual report, the timeline for transportation innovation in downstate New York dates back to our earliest days, whether it's the construction of the historic Montauk Lighthouse or Robert Fulton's steamboat along the Hudson. New Yorkers have built bridges, dug tunnels, spun out ribbons of highways, taken to the air, and transported us into the final frontier. And innovation doesn't just mean some cool new gizmo or way to get around, as even some of our member agencies are innovations themselves. Innovation can come in the form of a policy or a program or a law, really from any area, from any direction, always with the goal of moving us forward. Every one of NYMTC's member agencies is an innovator, pushing to improve opportunities, facilities, and services for the public you serve. I know you'll be speaking about those efforts in just a few minutes during our roundtable, so I will turn to the work we are doing here at NYMTC that contributes to the transportation innovation conversation for the benefit of everyone that lives, works, and travels in our area. On the cool gizmo side, we have the New York best practice model. The New York BPM is central to so much that we do at NYMTC, used by our members and our staff on major projects like Central Business District tolling and the Cross Bronx Expressway, as well as on all of the air quality conformity analysis required to get the federal approvals our members rely on. One of its recent updates integrated a GPS-based big data set for trucks in the 28-county region, one of the biggest updates to our freight data set since 2010. Meanwhile, we're about to start work on a regional household travel survey that will inform the next generation of this leading-edge travel model, a survey that will rely on innovative methods of data gathering. We also continue to bring together our survey community of practice, a group that has been so helpful in sharing travel survey ideas among our members to help harmonize the data gathering process. Okay, maybe not very flashy, but a smart and sensible way to work collaboratively, something we excel at NYMTC. We're going to hear in a little while about our next Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. Again, maybe not very flashy, but innovations abound in its pages. Our members and staff achieved so many visionary efforts that start there. Setu Allen and his team work closely with everyone, to develop and complete this plan. And I've got to steal, he's used to this at this point, I've got to steal just a little bit of Setu's thunder to talk about efforts like the Young Voices in Planning program at the New York City Department of City Planning, or the Public Transit System Study in Putnam County, or the Long Island Mobility Study that we'll be undertaking through NYMTC staff. All of these efforts and so many more have the goal of improving mobility through a community-focused public process, and there's no telling what new ideas will come from these efforts. I'll just briefly mention one other innovation that came from previous UPWPs and continues this year, the September 11th Memorial Scholars Program, something Commissioner Flynn just touched on. As we look ahead to the 25th anniversary of that dark day, we know that some small measure of healing has come from this program, which provides funding support for graduate students in area schools who work on projects with members and staff on transportation planning issues. Some of this year's program participants are here today, and we can't wait to see where this effort helps to take you. There's so much more I could talk about on the topic of innovation, the innovative projects in our 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, the visionary work in our Regional Transportation Plan moving forward 2055, the multi-agency NYMTC NYU Executive Leadership Training Program that is returning next month after an extended pause, our award-winning social media team that tells you about all this stuff and more, but I have to move us along to some other really fun stuff. So, as we recognize and celebrate the innovation that has come in our first 250 years, we at NYMTC also draw inspiration from those who will benefit from the decisions and investments we make here today. They are the innovators of the future, and often enough, as you'll soon see, the innovators of today as well. They are the students in the NYMTC region, and they are the ones who may be here to celebrate the next 250 years if you eat your vegetables like your parents tell you to. But I digress, as a parent. Earlier this month, we met with seniors in the civil engineering program at SUNY Stony Brook. We wanted to hear their thoughts on the projects helping to improve mobility on Long Island. Our thanks to Professor Rigoberto Borgueno, Department Chair, Professor Marija Kristic, and her students in the Senior Design Program for talking with us. We put together a video of the visit, so let's take a look at that now.
In early February, the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council met with a senior-level civil engineering class at Stony Brook University in Suffolk County. The visit provided an opportunity not only to introduce students to NYMTC, but also to offer an overview of transportation projects programmed in the 2026 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program and hear their thoughts on transportation projects of note in their daily lives. In collaboration with the chair of Stony Brook Civil Engineering Program, Dr. Rigoberto Borgueno, NYMTC highlighted several of the 378 transportation projects planned for the Long Island region over the next 5 years. Featured projects include the Oakdale Merge planning and preliminary engineering work, completion of the New York State Route 347 corridor reconstruction, asphalt resurfacing along the Long Island Expressway from the Queens-Nassau border through the Nassau-Suffolk line, replacement and rehabilitation of numerous structurally deficient bridges across the island, and the purchase of dozens of battery electric buses for Suffolk County. The presentation also highlighted more than 22 Nassau County projects focused on roadway improvements, traffic signal systems upgrades, new bus purchases, and expansion of the Traffic Management Center. Additionally, NYMTC discussed key elements of the MTA Long Island Railroad's 2025 to 2029 capital program, which includes just over $6 billion dedicated to state-of-good repair investments, station and ADA upgrades, track renewals, system-wide improvements, and more. We were pleased to have so many students in the class of nearly 30 ask questions about the transportation process and the particulars of these and other transportation concerns that they had in their own neighborhoods and daily commuting routes. Among these included the Exit 13 ramp off the Southern State Parkway, infrastructure issues surrounding the Long Island Railroad's Port Jefferson line, potential plans to alleviate traffic along the Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island expressways, traffic impact studies surrounding the Robert Moses Causeway, and more. In addition, we asked them to tell us, in essays of 150 words or less, what transportation issues should be prioritized in the Long Island region. These public comments on projects, including the Robert Moses Causeway and the Long Island Greenway, have been forwarded to the appropriate NYMTC member agencies for their consideration. We were honored to meet with Stony Brook's civil engineering class and were inspired by the insight and transportation know-how of these very well-informed students. We look forward to hearing more from the next generation of transportation engineers who will help guide Long Island and the NYMTC region into the country's next semi-quincentennial.
All right, great. I hope everybody enjoyed that, but we're not done. So, in December, I had the tremendous honor of meeting with 6th and 8th grade students from the New York City Charter School of the Arts right here in Manhattan. Executive Director and Principal Andrea Diamato and her staff allowed me to talk about transportation and to hear the amazing, unfiltered thoughts and questions from their wonderful students, some of whom are here today. They've been working on a class project in Mr. Patterson's music technology class, and we're excited to share it with you now.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Every day, millions of people move through New York City subway stations, each bringing a story, a culture, a rhythm.
Across the world, Japanese composer Minoru Mukaya transformed his country's railways by giving each station its own signature sound, a musical identity.
That idea sparked something in our music technology class here at New York City Charter School of the Arts. We studied Mukaya's process and created original jingles for our own home stations. Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island.
Each jingle reflects the history, culture, and sound of our city.
As the United States celebrates 250 years, our project reminds us of what America has always been.
A place where cultures meet, collide, influence each other, and create something new.
New York City's subway system is one of the most visible expressions of that story.
Each jingle we compose is a musical snapshot of America right now. Blended identities, layered histories, and neighborhoods shaped by families from every corner of the world.
This project doesn't just celebrate our students' creativity, it celebrates the city we call home. We're honored to share their work with the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council and with all of you at this year's conference. Happy 250th anniversary to the United States, and here's to the next generation shaping the sound of our future.
I mean, how How cool was that, everybody? So we actually, some of the students in the video are here today, and we're hoping that they might be able to come up to the stage, along with perhaps with Principal D'Amato and Mr. Pattison and the rest of the CSA family, to also get a round of applause and maybe a couple of photos. As they get back to their seats, I'm just going to close this out. So as I close, I have to thank the staff at NYMTC as well as our members for all of your hard work and, of course, your innovation. Your dedication and service to the people of New York City, Long Island, and the Lower Hudson Valley is, as always, very much appreciated, and I thank you.
All right. Wow, that was totally awesome. Thank you guys for coming and sharing what you've done. I don't want to put MTA on the spot, but that was pretty damn cool. I was just with Jano this morning, so maybe I can help you out. I don't know if he'll do it, but it's really cool. And a great way to kick off our innovation discussion. So thank you all very much to all the students, their teachers. Adam, thank you all very much for getting us off on a great foot here and really talking about posterity, what the future holds. And to help us do that, we have the privilege of hearing this morning from Polly Trottenberg. She is now the Dean of NYU's Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service, and she also serves as a Global Distinguished Professor here at NYU. For those that don't know about Polly, I'm going to read a little bit about her bio. She is a nationally recognized public sector leader and transportation expert. She has 3 decades of service at all levels of government. I don't want to say how long I've known her, but let's say it's in the 3-decade area. And prior to joining Wagner here at NYU, she served as the Deputy Secretary, which is, for those that don't know, the second most senior position at the U.S. Department of Transportation under Secretary Pete Buttigieg. She led the implementation of the landmark bipartisan infrastructure bill, which provided truly generational transportation investments that really focused on mobility, accessibility, economic growth, roadway safety, resiliency, and project delivery. In 2023, she also served as the acting administrator for the Federal Aviation Administration, which is no small feat because that actually is the largest agency within US DOT. Polly served for 7 years as New York City's Transportation Commissioner, overseeing the safe and efficient operations of the city's network, implementing the landmark Vision Zero program, which was talked about, and leading NYC DOT through COVID-19. She served on the board of New York City as the New York City representative to MTA and for about 5 years. And she also served under the Obama administration at USDOT, as well as working with Senators Moynihan, Schumer, Boxer, and also worked at the Aviation Department at the Port Authority. I'm going to have to take a drink because it's so much expertise that Polly brings to the table. We're really, really thrilled to have her with us this morning. So everyone, please welcome Polly Trottenberg.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Commissioner Dominguez. You know you're getting old when your colleagues need a drink of water as they race through your career. Let me tell you, it is such a privilege to welcome you all to the beautiful Kimmel Center here at NYU. As you've heard, I've been the dean of the NYU Wagner School of Public Service for almost 7 months. It has been an incredible, fascinating, challenging, and sometimes humbling experience. I'm here at this incredible university with amazing faculty and students. This university has vast ambition and global reach, and it's really given me a wonderful, fresh perspective and a lot to learn. So it has been a great gift to be here at NYU, and I'm thrilled that NYMTC has invited me to speak here today. I feel like my worlds are colliding. I did have the honor of serving on this body and chairing it. And I also just want to give a shout out to those students and those musical MTA stops. I now live near the jazzy West 4th stop, and that was spot on, so thank you all. That was terrific. And thank you also, Adam, for mentioning the great partnership that particularly the Rudin Center at the Wagner School has with NYMTC and the next generation of transportation leaders that we're going to be training together. Thanks for that. So it's great to see so many old friends and colleagues, and I won't run through everyone's names, but again, a shout out to the co-chairs. Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez, for your leadership over many years, actually both here in New York and also as a federal partner. And to your co-chair, who will only be briefly your co-chair, but Commissioner Flynn, thank you. It's so exciting to see you at the helm. And I know what you have been going through the past couple of months, because I also joined a new mayoral administration and the snowstorms came, and so congratulations on managing through all that. I'll also just acknowledge so many distinguished colleagues from state and local level, and of course, our colleagues from the county offices. Thank you for keeping our region's gears turning. And I also want to acknowledge my successor, former Commissioner Ydanis Rodriguez. I know you'll be honoring him today. Commissioner Rodriguez, the region is safer and more prosperous and more connected because of your leadership. Thank you. So I was just down in Washington this past weekend, and you can't miss the Freedom 250 signs. They are everywhere as we're talking about celebrating the semi-quincentennial of the signing of Declaration of Independence. So I was thrilled that NYMTC chose the theme, America 250, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Transportation Innovation. As you've heard a little bit from Adam and Marie-Therese, we are the city and the region. We played a key role in the American Revolution and in all the events that occurred after the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. Some of you may know the local history. Soon after it was signed, General George Washington, who was then stationed here in New York, ordered that the Declaration be read to his troops in what was then known as the Common. We now know it actually as City Hall Park. And this was happening while British ships were sitting in New York Harbor. Washington hoped as he read this declaration it would be inspiration for the revolutionary cause. And it was inspirational. And here in New York, an energized group of patriots marched down to Bowling Green, not too far from here, and dramatically pulled down what was then this large gilded statue of King George. Now I was a history major, so here's a little bit of history that I love. My mother grew up not too far from here in Litchfield, Connecticut. There's a historical marker there that says that the broken pieces of that statue of King George, they were taken to Litchfield and then melted down into 42,000 musket balls to fight the British. So it's a little bit of a metaphor for today, taking down perhaps an outdated symbol of the past and making it into the needed tools of the future. I think we're going to need to do that because we live in interesting times. It was not a coincidence, actually, that the British put their King George statue right in Bowling Green, facing New York Harbor. For we all know, as we've heard from my colleagues today, this region has always led the nation in transportation. It's been a big driver of our economic growth, our dynamism, you name it. From our earliest days as a major port and river and, of course, canal town, we went on to create the nation's most extensive system of rails, roadways, mighty bridges, ports and airports. As you heard, one of the nation's largest 24/7 subway and bus system, and we have also been often at the forefront of embracing new technologies, new methodologies, and micromobility. And here in the New York, New Jersey region, we are enjoying, I think, an exciting burst of new political leadership with Mayor Mamdani, Governor Sherrill, and I think that's brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm, particularly from the Gen Zers, many of my students here at NYU, and it's been wonderful to bring their voices and I think their priorities into the political process. So we have a lot to celebrate in our region, and so many of the folks here at this table and the people they represent have helped bring us some of those things to celebrate. Congestion pricing, The roller coaster of Gateway, which is now back on track, the Port Authority bus terminal, Penn Station, 2nd Avenue subway, and the continued work in communities large and small, in New York and New Jersey, on maintaining our transportation assets, building climate-resilient infrastructure, strengthening the region's freight system, and making our roadways safer and more accessible for all. But as my esteemed colleague, Commissioner Dominguez said, we do face an inflection point down in Washington with the bipartisan infrastructure law. It has brought billions of dollars to this region. It expires in September. The reauthorization fight is already gearing up in Congress. I think, as you put it, Marie-Therese, getting real, real fast. And that's going to be an important challenge and opportunity for this region. And I had a chance to look at NYMTC's Moving Forward 2050-50 plan. You all have, I think, an ambitious blueprint for transportation growth and innovation, and it will rely in part on support from Washington. But just as importantly, I think it will rely on the ability of this region and the leaders here at this table to successfully deliver on all those plans and projects. So since we have this theme, what might NYMTC play on the stirring words of our Declaration of Independence in this region and nationally now mean for us in what I think some might argue is an era that is revolutionary in its own way, politically, technologically, and generationally? As was mentioned, I'm a former US DOT official from the previous administration, and I'm proud to have served in an administration that made investing in infrastructure, particularly transportation, one of its highest priorities. I did serve under Amtrak Joe, and he loved infrastructure. And we did believe that those investments would improve people's lives, improve their economic prospects, and their ability to pursue their dreams. We believe those investments would enhance the vibrancy and accessibility of local communities, and that they would foster a safer and more innovative transportation system for moving people and goods across our country. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness plus innovation did fit perfectly into our work of delivering transportation. And I think, as many of you know in this room, just over 4 years ago, just over 5 years ago, when President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure law, it was the largest investment in transportation infrastructure that the country had seen in generations. And you know all the projects: roads, bridges, freight rail, transit, zero-emission school buses, ports, pipelines, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, the whole gamut. And I do like to remind folks, I think it's important to remember, especially at this moment, that the bill garnered a major bipartisan vote in the Senate, 69-30, with 19 Republicans in favor. In the House, less so, 228-206, but still secured 13 Republican votes. And that does give me hope, as the reauthorization process moves forward, that it can be bipartisan and we can find compromise on important investments around the country. The Biden administration also passed the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022, which is another area I know the leadership of this state was able to take great advantage of. It had the bold goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by roughly 40% by 2030 through investments in clean energy, supply chain and manufacturing sustainability, and methane reduction. So between the bill, IRA, and dozens of other policy-making steps the previous administration took, I think we made some real progress in key priorities: investing in safe, sustainable, and accessible infrastructure, addressing climate change and equity, fostering economic growth, domestic manufacturing, and job creation. And we are proud of the fact that we partnered very closely with states, cities, local communities, and transportation agencies to deliver on these priorities, especially here in this region. And I don't need to tell you all the important projects we worked on together. But I want to make an acknowledgement here that I think at the federal level, we did sometimes make things too complicated, both in the legislative process and the implementation process. We didn't always deliver fast enough, or sometimes make the necessary hard choices between worthy but competing priorities. I'll admit, at the federal level, we wanted every project to tackle climate, equity, workforce, Buy America, cybersecurity, and many other goals. And they're all important. But I think at times it could be a challenge to balance such a large agenda of policy priorities with getting those shovels in the ground and delivering those projects. I have to say it was a driving force for me at USDOT to work hard to try and cut down some of the bureaucratic and legalistic hurdles and reduce the burdens on our grantees, something I was personally focused on, having been a federal grantee myself at New York City DOT. I know many of you in this room have potentially had to navigate something which is an infamous acronym in the federal government, the NOFO, a Notice of Funding Opportunity. These NOFOs can sometimes run 100 pages and get to be a lot of work. We tried hard to shorten and simplify those documents, but I do wish we could have done more. I think we were hoping our work would do more to restore public trust in government, which has unfortunately been trending downward for generations. Suffice it to say, it didn't maybe necessarily turn out quite as we hoped, but it was a lesson for me in that focusing laser-like on outcomes, not process, must be our deepest value. That said, we launched tens of thousands of impactful transportation projects all across the country, the lion's share of them here in the greater New York region. And now we're looking forward to what's happening with the next reauthorization. No secret that the current administration has some different priorities, but I'm heartened to say there's actually been a lot of areas of continuity and cooperation in transportation. For example, the bipartisan infrastructure law provided over $200 billion in investments in public transit and rail, the largest investment in U.S. history, and a lot of those dollars are at work in transit and rail projects all across the country. I know there's been some ups and downs here in New York, but a lot of those dollars are going out the door and projects are being built. And look, the current administration has continued to support a lot of that work and is signed up to modernize both Union Station in Washington and Penn Station here in New York. The administration, I know Commissioner Flynn mentioned Vision Zero, something that I think has been a deep commitment to, I think, many commissioners throughout the city. And the administration is continuing to support certainly what was one of my proudest programs at the federal level, Safe Streets and Roads for All, which built upon the Vision Zero work that we did here in New York and in other cities all across the country, and particularly focused on providing grants to local communities. And thank you, Mike, for your kind acknowledgement of the work we did on Queens Boulevard. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the great progress of this city and this region in Vision Zero, and to celebrate the fact that New York City had the lowest number of fatalities last year, 205, since recorded history. And I know that's been true for some of the neighboring counties and over in New Jersey as well. So can we take a minute to applaud all those lives saved, people who got home to their families? And I do think that work will continue regardless of who's in the White House. It is work that is broadly shared across the transportation family. One other thing I want to flag, since Marie-Therese mentioned I did have the fascinating privilege of being the acting FAA administrator, the current administration is continuing to invest pretty heavily in the nation's aviation infrastructure, including $12.5 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill to modernize the FAA's air traffic control system. I got to see firsthand in my time as deputy secretary and as leading the agency how much that infrastructure had suffered from chronic underinvestment over the years. And I'm hopeful that they will now have some of the resources they need to do those modern upgrades that are so essential. And I think we all know, having seen what happens in this region when the air traffic control system isn't functioning well, the New York-New Jersey region, I think, stands above all others to benefit from those investments. The Brookings Institute released a really interesting report a couple years ago showing a trend that we're seeing in transportation, which is that increasingly transportation projects are funded at the state and local level. It's now, even a couple years ago, almost 80% as compared to what's coming in at the federal level. And I think, as a lot of us know, those funds are increasingly coming from user fees, and one that was mentioned, congestion pricing, which generated over $550 million for the MTA just in its first year of operation. And that does mean, even as we see, philosophical differences and challenges at the federal level, that state and local governments and county governments still have the ability to pursue a lot of projects and priorities on their own. That said, look, I don't want to deny it. Federal policy dollars and policy direction are important, and as Commissioner Dominguez said, we are at an inflection point here. And it is important. I know the leaders at this table are gearing up, but it's important for everyone in this region, if you care about transportation investments, make your voices heard as this reauthorization process gets going. Let's bring creativity and vision and urgency to the process. And knowing how New York rolls, I know we'll be a leader in making sure that that legislation will serve this region well. Just close with some thoughts on, as I talked about, something that I think I've grappled with as a legacy of my time in the previous administration. It's a growing movement in policy and political circles right now, led by thinkers like Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson and Mark Duggleman, calling for the agenda of abundance. I have to admit, pretty drawn to that bolder vision, calling for a more muscular approach to how we deliver better policies and projects and services for our citizens and communities. Those books, I think, have spurred a passionate and larger political debate about corporate power and income inequality, but to me, they just speak to my experience as a transportation practitioner at all levels of government. And I'm personally really excited that Klein and Thompson and Dunkelman are spurring this healthy debate And it's happening certainly here in New York City, particularly on the housing front, but it's also important on the transportation front. How can we, again, become a country that provides public goods, safe, efficient, and accessible transportation, clean energy, and affordable housing in abundance? As part of NYMTC's themes, pursuit of innovation, I think this is where our region shines. But we must continue our progress. And I think, Adam, you laid out some of the exciting things that are happening, new collaborations, technological innovations, AI and data analytics. There are increasingly sophisticated tools helping us with better asset management, better assessment of our work as well and its cost and benefits. And for me now, being on the academic side of the house, it has been so exciting and rewarding to collaborate with my NYU colleagues, particularly at the Tandon School of Engineering C2 SMART program, led by Professor Khan Osbey. Dr. Osbey, I'll always have a special place in my heart for him, and I know my fellow commissioners will feel the same way. He's the one who helped us start to get a handle on the asset management and monitoring of the BQE back when I was commissioner, and he's now studying how to use AI analytics to continue our quest to make our roadways safer. I think we're also seeing those exciting innovations again on, as Adam said, not the sexy things, but the things we all know are so important. Asset management, data analytics, modeling, and they're coming, I think, not only from the esteemed group here, but I have to say from some of our young students and researchers. And for me personally, this is a time, maybe perhaps a bit like we faced in COVID. It's challenging and disruptive, but it often brings out the best in people and teams. It encourages them to find the most creative solutions to hard problems. And it's an incredible moment to allow people to demonstrate leadership. So I will close with this. We are living in consequential times. Let us use, I think what we all agree is a fascinating moment, the 250th anniversary of our nation, to look forward, to innovate towards a region that is safer and more connected, more accessible, with broadly shared benefits across our communities. And I hope to tackle, as I've tried to do in my career and hope to continue to do, to tackle some of the legacy systems and processes that no longer serve us well in transportation and honestly in other fields too, like government and academia. Just to go back to my original story, let's turn those old statues into musket balls ready to fire at today's challenges. And I think with your Moving Forward 2055 plan, NYMTC, you can help lead the way. So thank you again for the leadership here. I'm excited to be part of the conversation and partnership with our students and colleagues. I think we can do a lot of great work together. I'm looking forward to what we will pull off in the next 250 years. Thank you so much.
Polly, thank you again so very much. Your experience speaks volumes, but your vision, your leadership leave a lasting legacy, and clearly it's continuing here in New York. And thank you for spurring our discussion for the remainder of this NYMTC meeting. I will say just on the focus on fatalities alone and looking at Vision Zero, it's something that not only has the city just embraced under your leadership and it continued under Commissioner Rodriguez, but we saw it as a nation, right? We saw the effects of COVID-19. We had a spike in fatalities on our roadways in particular, and the amount of energy and data and I will say commitment by so many different partners across the board has really improved our focus on it across the board, but also the numbers are going down, and it speaks to the level of commitment of everybody around this table. But again, I lead it back to thanking you and your leadership across the board, both at the city and the federal level. It's had a lasting impact, so thank you. With that, I'm going to use that as a pivot to turn to a bit of a roundtable discussion with all of those assembled there. Really appreciate the leadership here taking time to join us. And we've had some good tee-ups here. Adam talked about gizmos as well as data. We've had some inspiration from our future. Thank you all very much. But the bigger question is how do we take all of this and how do we action it in terms of innovation here in New York? And I know that each of your agencies, the counties, et cetera, are doing that on a daily basis. And maybe we could do a quick round, and maybe some folks could share some of the innovation that you're leading in your respective jurisdictions, agencies, as well as county government. So if anybody wants to volunteer to kick us off, I'm happy to acknowledge you. Anybody on? I'll go to my right first. Anybody in the county? Anything on innovation that you want to share, kind of writ large? What does it mean as you approach transportation planning,
So
et cetera?
I'll jump in from Suffolk County.
Okay.
And in Suffolk County, we run Suffolk County Transit, a very effective and small bus service, but we put the long in Long Island. We have a long service territory, 912 miles. And we, 2 years ago, relaunched our service. After a lot of study, supported by NYMTC and planning dollars, we reimagined our service. We simplified the service. We have direct fixed route service that is more frequent, that goes from where people live to where people are going for work, for entertainment, for medical services, and we got a tremendous amount of study, a lot of input, a lot of riding the buses to see what that impact was going to be, and launched that service. And I'm happy to say 2 years out that we have had a tremendous response. And we also added a lot of connectivity. I come from a railroad background, so we have 6 Jamaica stations stationed throughout Suffolk County for interconnectivity. So I'm happy to share with you that we have a 40% increase in our ridership as a result of that. And that is an innovation that we're very proud of, and it's an innovation that we need to propel forward through additional service, to seeing our ridership patterns, to knowing what our customers want, to getting more familiar with them, and to communicating with them. So that's an innovation I would share with this group.
Commissioner, I would say in Putnam County, we have a less dense population as many of our other counties and surrounding areas. But we obviously have the MTA, Metro North, that come through in Putnam County. And some of the more innovation that we've seen is we have our Putnam area response transit system, our fixed bus route system. But because of the limitations, because of we're such a more rural county, earlier last year we implemented microtransit. We're the first in the Hudson Valley region to implement microtransit, which has been very helpful to address the expansion of public transit needs as well as paratransit needs, because having handicap accessible vans was a very big part for some of the areas of Putnam that were more underserved. So that was, for our area, I think has been very helpful, and NYMTC has been very supportive.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner. I know that for us in Westchester County, as far as the innovation is concerned, and then the continued leadership between NYMTC and regionalization, to be able to move forward with that. Projects that we've had include our new innovation with Omni, so we've got that regionalization done, and continue to make sure that we move forward with that. As our friends up in Putnam, we have our little folks up in Peekskill that are having their microtransit hub and be able to do that. All of this counts on funding, and I know that some of my team just came back from the National Association of Counties, where across the country, and again, they may not have the same political persuasion as the people in New York State. But the truth is that everyone around the country knows that we need to work together to make sure that we're moving forward and getting these items done. And the innovations that come out of NYMTC through transportation improvement and the unified work plan that we have continued, that we're going to vote on a little bit later on, is so essential for us to continue to move forward. And again, without that, the coordination and the cooperation with everyone at every level of government, it's what makes a difference. So it's always great to be here.
Yeah, for Nassau County, I would just say that politics is politics, but if it were not for working together, we've got people from both parties here, counties represented by both parties. If not for unanimity, a lot of this would not get done. So it just shows that sometimes we can all work together. So I'm thankful for that.
Great. Let me turn it Commissioner Flynn?
Well, I think at this point in time, fixing the BQE triple cantilever would count as innovative. So, but I guess more seriously, I think what's one thing that's really exciting to me is using the increasing sources of data and sensors and modeling kind of technology out there to do better asset management. That was something Dean Trottenberg mentioned, whether it's getting ahead of our bridge condition or doing smarter roadway paving. Those are things that's more like the day-to-day things, but I think that there's opportunities to leverage technology and innovation to do them even more effectively, more efficiently, especially when resources are constrained. So that's something I'm really interested in.
I'm from the MTA. I love the juxtaposition of history to innovation. So as you mentioned in your opening remarks, the subway's been around for 100 years. And, the challenge that we have for the subways, for Long Island Railroad, Metro North, even bridges and tunnels, the bus system, is how do we get to the next 100 years? And making sure that we have innovation as part of that. I would say innovation is a fundamental to how we go forward from here. And I think of that as a challenge because for this region, that means delivering at scale. And I think that there's probably 3 buckets of ways in which we can think about solving for innovation and delivering at scale. And the first is, of course, the models like congestion pricing, both in terms of the public benefits that it delivered, but also the regional partners that it took. And there's many leaders in this room who worked on that for many, many years to make that happen. And so just to underscore the previous remarks, that working at the regional level, I think, is actually the foundation of providing innovation across the system, particularly at scale. The second bucket I would talk about is just how do we knit our system together. So in particular in the public transportation transit system, thinking about how do we leverage this incredible transit network we already have to make it even better. And we often think about that in terms of expansion projects. We have some pretty amazing projects that are underway, like Penn Station Access to provide train service in the Bronx, but also things that are ongoing, like the expansion of 2nd Avenue subway, as well as recent announcements by the governor to go even further than that, whether it's through the expansion of the subway on 125th Street or investment in the Jamaica Station. And the last bucket I would talk about is just sort of the fundamental projects that we must get done, both in terms of state of good repair, but also bringing innovation into those state of good repair projects. So that can be from climate resilience. We've put a lot of climate resilience investment into our next capital plan, the 25 to 29 capital plan. But also some of the things in the customer experience. And of course, very pleased to hear all of the student presentations. It's actually the kind of things like that that help inspire other projects. Some of the innovations that we have that I would say are integrated into our customer experience and state of good repair projects include things like Omni, which I'm sure you have all used to get into the subway system, our new fare gates, countdown clocks, which is obviously a previous investment, but continuing to provide the backbone, the technology behind it to make it work. Those are often very outmoded systems that we need to make better. And our signal modernization program that we call CBTC, that is a pretty fundamental switch from old technology, the fixed block system, into modern technology. And then, some of the real-time apps, as well as our public-private partnerships. One of the ones I would highlight is with Bolden Technologies, where they're helping at no cost to the MTA implement cell service in the subway tunnels.
All right. No small list there for MTA. Would you mind, sharing the, all right.
Thank you. I'm Laura Smith from the New York City Department of City Planning. Commissioner Flynn, I don't know if you realize you set me up earlier with the Euclidean zoning reference, because I would say one of the ways as a land use planning agency we are trying to be innovative when it comes to transportation planning is thinking beyond just sort of the straight line. I'm within a half a mile of a subway station, therefore you should have X, Y, and Z land uses. using open source data, using new data technologies to do more sophisticated sort of access models and walkability models that enable us, I hope and I think, to use slightly more sophisticated techniques for mapping different land uses and different densities, and really trying to be opportunistic with our transportation assets, seeing a sort of symbiotic relationship between land uses and the transportation assets that may exist within or adjacent to, rather than seeing a subway as sort of an opportunity to get from point A to point B, looking at where we have capacity to add housing or where we may choose to locate jobs in order to get people off of the system before it gets really crowded heading into Manhattan. So it's not entirely innovative, I think, to think about the relationship between land use and transportation assets, but really trying to think creatively to harness the existing infrastructure to make better decisions and ensure that all New Yorkers have access to opportunities that are provided through the transportation system. Thank you.
All right. And our federal partners? Okay. It's okay.
Sure. I'm happy to share some thoughts. So I'm actually a state partner with the state DEC. He has decided to pass. But my name is Sanjay. I work in the climate, air, and energy space, and so I'm maybe I'm glad to be among the transit nerds. I think of myself as a transit nerd, but I come from the space from like more of an air quality aspect. And so the innovation that we're looking at DEC right now is to think about how do we deal with mobile source emissions, oh dear, from transportation assets.
This is a community that accepts and embraces transit nerds, so.
Excellent. Well, and so one of the things that we've done at DEC is the Community Air Monitoring Initiative. So we identified 10 communities that were particularly exposed to pollution in New York and had a vehicle run every single street in that community with air monitoring equipment on it to really see, okay, what is the experience of air pollution in this community and what are the main contributors? And one of the things that we realized is, okay, New York State as a state has done a really good job controlling emissions from power plants, stationary sources, but actually one of the challenges we face is we have a lot of emissions from freight vehicles, from just traffic in general. And in order to meet these goals we have for clean air, especially in some of these communities that have been burned by decades of infrastructure investment in those communities, we need to do more in transportation. And so DEC is working as a part of this Community Air Monitoring Initiative to really identify what are the strategies we can implement across the state to, as we're expanding our transportation, also making sure that everyone has equal access to clean air.
All right. Well, the Port Authority innovation is something that we're actually really trying to focus in on. Our planning department was just recently transformed into the Department of Planning and Innovation. And we're really trying to have a sustained focus on AI, AVs, vertical takeoff and landing, pretty much anything that has the potential to be disruptive or create new opportunity. We want to be tracking it, watching it, and we're looking to do a lot of testing. So we were out with a snow machine at Newark Airport, testing some AVs. Got interrupted a little bit by nature's own snowmaking, which took the airport staff off with other operational responsibilities. But we're really looking at trying to move forward on a lot of these things. Testing is going to be important. Test. But we're also looking for partnerships. We want to make sure that we have a policy basis for a lot of this stuff, but we also need to play with the technology a little bit to understand what it's capable of doing, what works, what doesn't work. But that policy piece is important, because if we're not ahead of it, then the companies, the private sector is going to go off and do its own thing, which may have unintended consequences that don't work well for the region's actual transportation users. So we have a large focus on AVs. We really want to try and guide that into transit so that we don't have 1 billion privately owned, single occupant, cars driving around by themselves. There are other things that go beyond the Port Authority's purview, but we're looking at in terms of equity. So with AVs, what is the parking situation going to look like in the future? You detach the vehicles from the parking from the land use, you could potentially see a very quick shift in the way the city looks. And if we're not ahead of that on a policy basis, it may be too late. So if you could have a situation where affluent neighborhoods, don't have driveways, they have more landscaping, they don't have parking lots, they get more cafes, but the cheaper land in lower income communities becomes large garage for fleets of, whatever mobility as a service provider ends up taking over. So really making sure that we're all talking, have a focus, and we're really thinking about how things could change is going to be important for us as regional partners.
Hi, everybody. So in New Jersey, which is just to the left of NYMTC, we have the pleasure and maybe the burden of being a statewide provider, which means we have both, quite rural areas as well as, quite dense urban areas. So a lot of the things have been touched on already, whether it's microtransit, say in more of the southern parts of the state, or areas that are more suburban in nature, which allow us to concentrate our fixed route service on key corridors, the things we've heard from certainly from Suffolk, to, frankly, sort of on the other end of the infrastructure spectrum, trying to innovate with our partners to fix the Northeast Corridor, for example, which is the rail line between Boston and Washington, basically, which most of our rail service operates on, but we don't own it. And then there's lots of things in between, right? And sometimes I think we talk about innovation, it almost masks the fact that that should just become baseline, right? So are we using new tools for everything from back of house things like asset management or technologies which allow us to understand passenger flows better through our facilities? We've had some, I think, good working relationships with a lot of the members and agencies at the table through various fora. So the New York City Partnership convened something called the Transit Tech Lab for several years. I think there were things like that which are really kind of useful, where we can compare notes. I would certainly encourage. I could go on and on and on, but I think a lot of people have raised a lot of good points, so I'll probably leave it at that. Thanks.
Also coming from over on the left side of the screen here from North Jersey. I think a lot of things have been touched on, and I think our role as an MPO in New Jersey is the kind of thing we're going to, we share with our agencies, with our communities. And just really quickly, I think that sometimes we can get caught up in the gizmos and the latest high-tech development. But I think what the traveling public really wants is for their trips and for their life to be a little simpler and a little easier. And I think a lot of this innovation may occur behind the scenes, and they may not be aware of it. But things like using rich sources of data for asset management means perhaps that someone's not hitting that pothole because it gets fixed a little faster, and they don't have that expense, and they didn't have their day get screwed up by that. Something as simple as being able to tap to go into the subway now, and not having to have another card or another app. I think all these things, and maybe it's okay that eventually, after the initial rollout of these things, people somewhat take them for granted, just like we take for granted that water is going to come out of the tap and electricity is going to come out of the socket. I think that signal modernization, a similar thing. Perhaps the person doesn't realize all the sensors and things that are making that light switch a little quicker because there's not traffic in the opposite direction. So I think anything that we can do that makes it just, like I said, a little easier and a little simpler. And that even applies to things like land use, because for some people who might have said, I didn't realize, and again, coming from suburban New Jersey perspective, I didn't realize that I could live in a way with one car in the family instead of 2 or 3, or in a way where I can walk out of my house and have things to do, and a way to get around without having to get in my car. I think, again, that sometimes it's the simple stuff that really matters for people, and that innovation can actually really encourage that.
I really appreciate. Did we miss anybody? Everybody good? Okay. No? Commissioner? Okay. I'll speak really briefly from the state DOT perspective with regard to innovation. Our partners at DEC, at state DEC, are leading the way here on something that's the governor's calling cutting red tape, but basically what it is an ability, how do we do things in an innovative way on some of the most basic things that we need to do? And that is the focus on the secret process and permitting. And, there's so many things we're talking about: asset management. How do we use technology and data to better inform our decision-making, whether it's with regard to land use or risk, assigning risk. What we do is we take the data, right? We understand what do we need to address from an asset management perspective. all of that is really good, but it actually has to be applied in ways that are really fundamental. And one of the things that we're looking at doing at New York State, and certainly DEC is leading the way in all of this, is how do we make sure, because when we do an investment in infrastructure, it often leads to housing opportunities, right? And economic development opportunities. And all of that requires permitting, whether it's at state DOT, housing, ESD, or DEC. And so how do we make sure that our internal processes are as streamlined as they possibly can be, and really getting to what people want to see, which is the increased ability, for quality of life, a better quality of life. That includes housing, that includes high quality transit and transportation experiences. So in many ways, it is behind the scenes efforts, but those behind the scenes efforts yield great benefit for the public. So that's what I would offer from the state DOT perspective, with full credit to DEC as a partner on all of it. But I really want to thank everybody for the conversation and for sharing some demonstrable ways that the entire region is tackling innovation. It couldn't be more critical to the work that we do from a planning perspective. So thank you all very, very much for bringing everything to the table here. With that, I am going to turn the microphone over to Commissioner Flynn.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we'll now move on to the public participation item on the agenda. We'll hear from registered participants in the order that they registered to speak. Each registered speaker will be given 3 minutes to offer their statement. We ask each registered speaker to limit your comments to relevant transportation and planning related items. And again, 3 minutes. When I call your name, please use one of the standing microphones in front of the stage. First, we have Murray Bowden.
My name is Murray Bowden. One of the things that governs safe transportation is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. People from outside this area need to know a standard set of results. Your pamphlet today is an example of nobody paying attention. The picture shown has lines that were designed 50 years ago, straight lines with a protractor. Today is flexibility. The line should be where the snowplow goes, not straight lines. Whose responsibility is it to assure that the safety of the public is consistent signs and lines? Some arrows point down over the head, but on the Kosciuszko Bridge, they all point out, up, giving you direction of where you're going to go. Unless somebody tackles this and makes it consistent. You had sounds for different subway stations. Somebody from outside of this area will not know what they are, which is why that manual is there. It should be left yellow lines, right white lines. It's not. Somebody has to make that happen. I'm 92. My time is over. If you don't fix it consistently, for those people, I have hearing aids. I'm half deaf. Your information needs to be consistent and simple and truthful. And if you can't do that, there's no future. It's your responsibility. I don't know who's going to fix it, but somebody has to. My time's over. Thank you.
The next registered speaker is David Gilman.
Very brief. My name is David Gilman. Good afternoon. Once again, with a bit of stiffness under trying circumstances, MTA has made sure that our city flows. Much has been said about the idea of free buses. In my experience, the bus is a key link to utilizing the Lifeline subway system. And mention has been made of an extraordinary fiscal cost to implementing free buses. I must admit that I am skeptical about such elevated numbers. Given that there are free transfers between the bus and subway, whereby riders do pay, but at the turnstile, I wonder what the actual cost is of free buses. For example, if 90 or 95% of bus riders ultimately pay at the turnstile, the actual revenue loss would be small, made up with the reduced equipment and manpower required, along with inter-service time improvement of much faster onboarding. On the other hand, if only, say, half or two-thirds ride both, the loss would be quite large. My guess is that it is in the 70 to 85% range. So with the massive actual data available from Metro and Omni cards, my question to you, the MTA, is what is the expected actual loss of free buses, taking into consideration those who ride both? I doubt that you have that information immediately at hand, but I think that it would be worthwhile and should be published to the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to tackle our action items that are on the agenda. All of the material for these action items has been posted on the NYMTC website at www.nymtc.org. As we move through the action items, I request that all voting members announce your name, your agency that you represent, and or your county. And when you make a motion, please do so, your name and your organization. So the first action is to accept the September 5th, 2025 meeting synopsis.
Mike Flynn, New York City Department of Transportation. I make a motion to accept.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Kevin Byrne, Putnam County. I second.
All right. Does anyone object to the motion? Hearing no objections, let's vote. All in favor? All right. Any opposed? All right. Hearing no objections, the meeting synopsis is accepted. Wish I had a gavel. Okay. Moving on to the second item on our action items, the adoption of resolution 2025-1, council adoption of state fiscal year 25-26 unified planning work program. Alan from the NYMTC stuff? Sorry, stay to Alan. If you could please give us an overview, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the introduction. So this will be a brief overview of the state fiscal year 20 unified planning work program. Oops. Apologies. So to start with, what is the Unified Planning Work Program? The Unified Planning Work Program, or the UPWP, is primarily NYMTC's annual budget. It is a document that describes how NYMTC will use federal transportation dollars for transportation planning activities throughout the NYMTC planning area. The document also includes or describes non-UPWP funded studies that are primarily included for informational and collaborative purposes. So like most things that NYMTC does, NYMTC's work and the Unified Planning Work Program is guided by the plan. The current plan, Plan 2055 moving forward, was adopted in September of last calendar year, 2025. And that plan has 7 shared goals that were developed in collaboration between all the NYMTC member agencies, which include issues related to, rather objectives related to fairness and access, the environment, land use, congestion, resiliency, safety, and infrastructure. So in terms of the Unified Planning Work Program, we typically think of it as including 2 main parts, a core program and a discretionary program. This slide here includes the overall core planning process, and we'll start with the right-hand side, which is the Regional Transportation Plan. That is a document that NYMTC's member agencies work together and collaborate on to develop a long-range vision for the area or for the region. Like I mentioned before, the last plan was adopted in September of 2025, but in the upcoming state fiscal year, NYMTC will begin at least the initial preliminary work on developing the next plan, which will be Plan 2060. In addition, each year, NYMTC's member agencies and NYMTC staff work together to develop a unified planning work program. This is updated annually. And in addition to funding the core work of the MPO, the Unified Planning Work Program is a mechanism by which member agencies and staff can expand the scope of the planning process to incorporate studies and activities to help achieve the vision of the long-range plan. Then we have the Transportation Improvement Program. This is a document that is a program of projects that's updated every 2 or 3 years. And this is a document that describes the overall schedule and funding for projects throughout the NYMTC planning area. In addition to that, there'll be work related to congestion management and emissions analyses. The big picture here is at least once during the upcoming state fiscal year, NYMTC will process amendments to the plan and the TIP, and some of those amendments will require NYMTC to perform what's called a transportation conformity determination analysis. And one of those will be undertaken, like I said, during the upcoming state fiscal year. And finally, we have that one final piece of the pie, the project planning and implementation. This is primarily the work of the owners and the operators of the transportation system, but this is the work to really implement the improvements. And these are the improvements that are guided by the vision in the long-range plan. So in addition to the core work that NYMTC does, NYMTC also has a fairly robust discretionary program. These are projects, like I mentioned before, that really expand the scope of the planning process and enable the member agencies working with or with themselves or with NYMTC staff to really do work that enables us to achieve the vision of the long-range plan. So in the interest of time, I won't go through everything on these next 2 slides, but I would just say that these are some of the general themes that emerged with some of the projects that were recommended for the upcoming work program. And some of the themes relate to safety. So Rockland County will be continuing their Clarkstown Safety and Sustainability Study for the Routes 303 and 303 corridor. Freight-related issues, so New York City Planning will be doing a review of the package delivery industry and also analysis related to last-mile facilities in the New York City area. There will be sub-area studies. So one thing that NYMTC staff will be managing is a Northern Westchester East-West Corridor study that is a planning and environmental linkages project that should hopefully be starting in the next couple of months. Then we have data collection activities. So New York City DOT is proposing to undertake an annual, or rather begin an annual freight collection program, traffic counts program, excuse me. And then we have transit improvements. So one example is Putnam County will be doing an analysis of their public transit system and looking for opportunities to expand or enhance the service within that county. In terms of the overall funding in the work program, it is roughly a $72 million work program. This includes both new funding provided to the region by our federal partners, being the FTA and the FHWA. It also includes funding that was initially allocated to NYMTC, but not yet spent. So again, it's $72 million. This is funding for both core program and discretionary work. And in terms of the overall allocation for this work program, it's roughly 61% that's going to NYMTC staff. And for the staff, our work is primarily focused on core program activities. And then another roughly 40% is being passed through to the member agencies, primarily for the discretionary activities that they plan to undertake over the upcoming state fiscal year. So thank you. So of course, the thanks for developing this program it's a lot of work. It's really the knowledge and experience of the NYMTC staff in developing the core program work. It's also the efforts of the NYMTC member agencies and their staff to really come up with, working with NYMTC staff, the ideas that get incorporated into the NYMTC discretionary program. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues who really work on the work program with me, like Joy Burton and Jumi Lee, as well as my colleagues Milton Loperena and Kimberly Estes. So thank you all, and I would ask the council if you could please adopt this resolution.
Thank you so much, Seitu. I know how much work goes into this, and you're so facile in presenting all of it so easily. But it's literally months of work, so thank you very, very much for the overview. With that, may I have a motion to adopt the Unified Planning Work Program for 26-27? May I have a second?
Laura Smith, New York City Department of City Planning. Second.
Any discussion? Okay. For this vote, we're going to do a roll call, starting with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County?
Aye.
Rockland County?
Aye.
Westchester? Aye. Long Island, Nassau County?
Aye.
Suffolk County?
Aye.
New York City DOT?
Aye.
New York City City Planning? Aye. And finally, MTA? Aye. New York State DOT votes aye. All right. With that, the program passes. Thank you all very much. I think it deserves a round of applause. Thanks to everyone. As Seitu said, everybody's efforts are so critical to this planning process. All right, with that, we have some special recognitions that we would like to put forward here today. We have a resolution. It's Resolution 2026-2, recognition for the incredible service of Commissioner Udanis Rodriguez, who served as a principal member of NYMTC. This resolution truly does express NYMTC's appreciation for you, Commissioner, the service that you provided as a principal member of the council, and also as the former co-chair. But for those of us that have had the opportunity to work with you during your tenure at City DOT, we know what a passionate, thoughtful, considerate leader you've been. You were very active on the council here for NYMTC, providing vision, really helping shaping the future of New York City, as well as the larger metropolitan region. And we really do thank you for your years of service and certainly for your leadership across the board. We wish you extremely well in all of your endeavors moving forward, but I have a feeling we're going to be seeing you fairly often, and that's very exciting. So with that, may I have a motion for the resolution honoring and recognizing the service of Commissioner Udanis Rodriguez?
Ken Jenkins, Westchester County. So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Robert DiCarlo, Nassau County, I make the second.
Thank you very much. Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations and a huge thank you. Please join us on stage. Come on up. Can we take a quick photo? All right. Our next resolution is 2026-3 to recognize the service of our current NYMTC co-chair from City DOT, Commissioner Flynn. Congratulations. We very much appreciate your time and energy, and we look forward to continuing to work with you, but wanted to acknowledge the time that you have served as the council's co-chair, so thank you very much. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution to acknowledge Commissioner Flynn?
Stephen Powers from Rockland County moves the resolution.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Elisa Pica, Suffolk County. Second.
Thank you very much. Any objections? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Thank you very much, Commissioner Flynn. Can we do it here? Is it okay to do it here?
Yes.
We appreciate it. Thank you. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Commissioner Flynn. Is that right?
I think we have one.
All right, we have one more final action here. Okay, I apologize. All right. We have to, exactly. Now we have big shoes to fill, and want to introduce our new incoming co-chair from Putnam County. The memorandum of understanding for the council, the co-chair is rotated annually among the 3 NYMTC transportation coordinating committees. Last year, the co-chair was selected from New York City. This year, the co-chair has been selected from the Mid-Hudson South Transit Coordinating Committee, and we very much welcome Putnam County Executive Kevin Byrne. He's been selected as co-chair for the incoming program year. Thank you very much, County Executive Byrne. I look forward to working with you. Or is there anything you would like to share, any remarks you'd like to make at this point in time?
Sure. I want to begin by thanking the co-chairs, Commissioner Dominguez, Commissioner Flynn, former Commissioner Rodriguez, for your leadership, all the council members, NYMTC, Executive Director Lubin, and all the amazing NYMTC staff. It's really a pleasure to be here in person with you all. And for those that don't know me, I have also had the privilege of working with Commissioner Dominguez from my prior role when I was in the State Assembly, and now also as County Executive, and I very much appreciate your continued leadership and partnership on regional transportation issues. The work that NYMTC does is extremely important and vital to our region, and I think it's fitting that the theme is life, liberty, and the pursuit of transportation innovation, and it reflects the important work that we are all engaged in as transportation affects so many things that we do each and every day, and it's an important social determinant of public health. You can't get to a hospital unless you're traveling over transportation. You can't get help unless you have access, and accessibility to transportation and infrastructure is very important, and it requires planning that is funded from things like the UPWP funding and plan that was just approved. And I appreciate everyone here at the dais, members of the public, for participating, and look forward to our great work next year.
Thank you so very much. All right, welcome. County Executive Byrne, we very much look forward to working with you. Thank you very much for taking on these responsibilities. It'll be a pleasure. Before we conclude, I want to say a couple of quick thank yous. Our Secretary, Deb Nelson, does a fantastic job. And a huge thank you again to our Executive Director, Adam Levine, the entire NYMTC staff. It really is very much appreciated, all the work that you put in, not just this meeting, but literally on a day-to-day basis. The planning for our region is so critical. With that, I ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there anything else? Did I miss it? No? Okay.
Make a motion.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? All right. Does anyone object?
Oh, no.
All right. Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Travel safely.